Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. If you've ever poured your heart into someone who didn't even bring a cup, this story might just sting a little. Let's get into it. She laughed as she came through the door. That was the first red flag. Not the laugh itself. Ren's laugh used to be my favorite sound in the world. But this one wasn't for me. It was the kind of laugh you bring home by accident, still stuck to your skin from somewhere you shouldn't have been. She was carrying her heels. One strap dangled like it had been torn. Her hair was pulled back in a way I hadn't seen before. Slick, sharp, new. And her lipstick, gone. But I could still smell the smoke on her dress and the faint bite of whiskey she hadn't touched in years. I didn't say anything, just sat there on the floor beside the coffee table, surrounded by takeout boxes I ordered because she said she'd be home for dinner. I had tried to save the dumplings. They were cold, like the silence. She didn't notice the food, or the new candles, or the movie still paused on the screen. Our movie. The one she made me watch 3 times when we first started dating because she said the ending felt like hope. Now, it just felt like a lie. She dropped her purse, yawned, and mumbled something about her friend Ava's birthday. Said it, got a little wild. She didn't ask why I was on the floor, didn't ask why I hadn't gone to bed, didn't ask anything at all. Instead, she peeled off her earrings, walked past me, and climbed the stairs. That laugh still echoing in my ears, like the last sound a house makes before it collapses. And the worst part, I already knew. I knew when she texted me at 7:03 p.m. Gonna grab drinks to the girls. Be safe. Love you. I knew when she didn't send a single update all night. Not even a lazy on my way. I knew when I opened Instagram by accident and saw a video posted by someone I didn't even follow. Just a background clip in a noisy bar, but clear enough to see her silhouette. Dancing, laughing, not with girls, with him. The same guy from her work who just gives everyone hugs. The same guy who once called her dangerous in a good way at their holiday party, while I stood 3 feet away, holding her coat. I didn't confront her, not that night. I just sat there on the floor, dumplings untouched, heart unraveling, and eyes locked on the stairs. She vanished up without a glance back. My brain replayed the sound of her laugh, like a punishment I didn't remember earning. That night, she chose the bar. Not me, not dinner, not the man who memorized her coffee order down to the swirl pattern on top. The next morning began with her humming in the shower, not apologizing, not explaining, humming. She always hummed when she was guilty. I learned that during our 3rd year of marriage, when she accidentally forwarded me a text meant for someone else. Something innocent sounding on the surface, but layered with too many inside jokes for it to be harmless. That time, she claimed it was just a coworker, and I believed her. But that same humming tune, I never forgot it. It was the melody of distraction, a sound she made to block out the weight of truth. Ren came downstairs wearing one of my t-shirts, barefoot, smiling like nothing had happened. Her phone was already in her hand, thumb scrolling, face lit by the glow of a screen she never let me see. I was still on the couch. I hadn't moved much. Sleep wasn't really an option when your heart feels like it's being evicted. She leaned over, kissed my forehead like I was a pet left on the couch overnight, and asked if I wanted coffee. I didn't answer. I just stared at her. And maybe that silence finally cracked her performance, because her smile faded just slightly. I told you, it was Ava's birthday, she said, pouring herself a cup like the words had earned her another lie. Ava called, I said, to thank us for the gift I sent. Her hand froze mid-pour. What? I didn't blink. She said she had dinner with her parents last night. Said you couldn't make it? Ren went quiet. She didn't even pretend to be surprised. Just exhaled slowly, placed the cup down, and muttered, okay. So I didn't go to Ava's. My heart started pounding harder, not because she lied, but because of how casually she was now undoing it. Like the truth wasn't worth hiding anymore. Then where were you? She shrugged. I just needed a night out. A real one. With him? Her eyes flicked up fast. She didn't ask who I meant. Didn't play dumb. Didn't stall. You looked through my phone? I didn't have to, I said. The bar had mirrors. For the first time in months, she didn't have a response. No insult. No diversion. Just her lips pressing together like a door being locked from the inside. And I realized then, she didn't expect consequences. She never did. Because I never gave her any. I always forgave. Always blame myself for the distance, for not being more exciting, for being too tired after work, too quiet during dinner, too cautious with money while she wanted more nights out, more shoes, more life. But that morning, something cracked. Not in her. In me, not loud, not dramatic, just broken. I stood up, walked past her, and opened the front door. She followed, confused. "Where are you going?" she asked. "To get back the parts of me I left in your hands," I said. She didn't stop me, just stood there, holding a coffee cup she never offered me, in a shirt she hadn't earned the right to wear. That night, she chose the bar. And by morning, even she could see. I didn't drive anywhere that morning. That would have made sense. That would have been mature. Instead, I sat in the parking lot of a gas station 2 miles from home, sipping flat vending machine soda, and wondering how long it would take her to realize I wasn't coming back, at least not right away. I didn't leave a dramatic note or toss my ring on the counter. I didn't do any of the things you see in movies. I just needed the silence. I needed to feel like a person again before I had to face the person she had become. By noon, she hadn't called. That hurt more than I'll admit. I started second-guessing everything. What if I was overreacting? What if there was no affair? Just a woman who missed her freedom, who didn't know how to say she felt trapped? Maybe I was too boring, too safe. The kind of man women outgrow. I looked down at my hands and remembered when she used to trace the veins in them while calling me steady. Now they just looked like hands that built a life someone else didn't want. And then the message came in, not from her, from my cousin Theo. "Hey man, hate to be the one to tell you this, but Ren was at Copper Fox last night, with Jeremy. They weren't exactly being subtle. You okay?" Jeremy, her friend from accounting. The guy she said was married. The one she said I was being ridiculous about. The one who just needed someone to talk to after his divorce. Oh wait, didn't she say he was married? The lies were piling faster than I could keep up with. I didn't respond to Theo. I couldn't. My hands were shaking. Not from rage. Rage would have been easy. No, this was something deeper. The kind of hurt that feels like your soul just got evicted without notice. I stared at my phone for a long time. I didn't call her. I didn't even want to hear her voice. I opened our shared photo album and scrolled back to a picture we took on our 3rd anniversary. Her, in that mustard yellow dress she swore she hated, but wore because I loved it. I remember how tightly she held my hand that night, how real it felt. And now, I couldn't tell if that version of her ever existed, or if I just built her in my mind out of scraps of what I needed to believe. I drove home at sunset. The house looked the same, but everything inside had shifted. She was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at her phone, the coffee cup from earlier still half full beside her. "You didn't answer," she said. I didn't have anything left to say. "Are you going to punish me by disappearing?" "I didn't disappear," I said. "You just stopped looking." That hit her. I saw it, but not enough to break the walls she'd built around herself. She stood up, arms crossed like she was the victim. "It was one night," I laughed. I actually laughed. "You think the betrayal started last night?" She opened her mouth but said nothing. "It started when you stopped choosing me," I continued, voice shaking. "When I stopped being your first text, your last call. When your secrets had more intimacy than we did. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just said it like I had rehearsed it 1,000 times, because in my head, I had." She sat back down, quiet for the first time in weeks. And I realized something horrifying. She didn't think I'd ever leave. She thought I'd stay, clean up the pieces, forgive, and forget. But I wasn't that man anymore. That night, she chose the bar. I didn't sleep that night, again. Not because I was obsessing over her. I'd crossed that line already. No, this time I was kept awake by the sound of her moving around the house like she was suddenly trying to play the part of concerned wife. She'd shuffle past the bedroom door, pause for a second, then keep walking. Maybe she thought I'd open the door and tell her everything was fine. Maybe she thought I was the same Curtis who used to fold when she so much as frowned. I wasn't. That night, I slept in the guest room. Or more accurately, I laid there staring at the ceiling fan, counting each rotation like it could spin the numbness out of my chest. At some point around 4 a.m., I checked her phone. I didn't want to. I swore I wouldn't. But when someone lives in your house, in your bed, and you no longer recognize them, you start looking for answers in places you never would have touched before. I didn't even need a password. She never locked it. That's how confident she was that I wouldn't look. The messages were still there, not just from the night before, from months. Flirty jokes, inside references, one picture of a hotel key resting on her leg. She hadn't sent anything graphic, but it didn't need to be. The emotional affair had bloomed so completely that physical cheating felt like a technicality. She had been in love with someone else, while sharing my dinner table, my couch, my toothbrush drawer. The text told me more than she ever had. She talked about how she felt trapped, how she missed being wanted, how she couldn't keep pretending everything was okay with me. Jeremy, that smug idiot from accounting, replied with things like, "He doesn't get you like I do, and you deserve to be adored, not tolerated." Adored, tolerated. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear the phone in half and throw it at her feet. But I didn't. I put it down, walked into the bathroom, and stared at myself in the mirror for a long time. And all I could think was, when did I become someone people settle for? I wasn't perfect. God knows I wasn't. But I had stayed. I had tried. I had made space for her dreams and silenced my own when the bills piled up. I didn't flirt with coworkers or vanish into bars with strangers. I was steady, and apparently, steady wasn't enough. By sunrise, I knew what I had to do. I didn't make a dramatic speech. I didn't pack all my things. I just made coffee, left her a note on the fridge, and walked out. The note was short, just one sentence. "I saw everything, and I'm done being the man you walk past." That was it. No accusations, no begging. Just the kind of finality she never expected from me. I turned my phone off, drove for hours, slept in my car that night outside a lake we used to visit before we got married, the same spot where she once said, "I never want to lose this." And I realized she had. She just didn't know it yet. That night, she chose the bar. And by now, the silence I left behind was screaming louder than any fight we'd ever had. The lake was still as glass the next morning, and for a few seconds, I pretended I was someone else. A man just passing through. A guy taking a detour to clear his mind, not someone hiding from his own marriage. But reality always finds a way in. Mine came through a soft ding on my phone when I turned it back on around 8 a.m. One message, no missed calls. Just a text from Ren. "We need to talk. Please come home." No. "I'm sorry." No. "I made a mistake." Just a request, a need, like I was a technician sent to fix something broken she never cared enough to maintain. I stared at that message for so long, my coffee went cold. Every part of me wanted to pretend this could still be fixed. That maybe if I just went back and laid it all out, every wound, every disappointment, maybe she'd finally understand. Maybe she'd finally choose me again. But that's the kind of fantasy you hold on to when you're more afraid of starting over than staying hurt. I didn't reply. Instead, I drove to my brother's place. Evan and I aren't close. Not really. We love each other the way two people do when they've taken very different roads in life. Him with his loud kids and his reliable wife and his always mowed lawn. Me with a car full of duffel bags and a heart that had been slowly dying in a beautiful house that looked perfect from the outside. Still, when I showed up at his door, he just nodded and stepped aside to let me in. No questions. He offered the guest room without a word. I laid on that unfamiliar mattress, the ceiling fan humming like the one in my own home. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something strange. Relief. Not happiness, not even hope. Just the absence of tightness in my chest. It turns out when someone stops pretending they're okay, their lungs start working again. That night, I didn't get any more texts from Ren, but I did get one from an unknown number. The message said, "Didn't mean to come between anything." I didn't know it was serious. "Jeremy?" I laughed, out loud, a bitter, pathetic, exhausted laugh. He didn't know it was serious. I married her. I shared every damn part of my life with her. I gave up promotions to stay close when her father got sick, skipped bachelor trips to save for her boutique, held her hand through 2 miscarriages that shattered me more than they did her. And he didn't know it was serious. I didn't reply. What was the point? Instead, I scrolled through photos again. Not the ones from vacations or anniversaries. I was done being tricked by carefully posed memories. No, I looked at the candids. The ones where she wasn't aware of the camera. And I noticed something. Something I had never seen before. She never looked at me the way I looked at her. Not once. I always looked like I was reaching. She always looked like she was just standing there, being reached for. The kind of realization that doesn't need loud music or shouting matches. It just sinks in, cold and still, like the water outside the cabin window. She never lost me because of one night. She lost me because the truth had been rotting quietly between us for years, and I was the only one holding my breath. That night, she chose the bar, and now I was choosing something too. Peace. Evan's kids woke me up with cereal and cartoons. They didn't know I was hiding from a crumbling marriage. They just knew Uncle Curtis was sleeping in the guest room and snored like a monster truck. I made a joke, ruffled their hair, and laughed in that thin, hollow way people do when they're barely holding themselves together with duct tape and coffee. Later that morning, Evan and I sat outside with 2 mugs of black coffee. He didn't say much. He never was the emotional one. But eventually he asked if I was going back. I didn't know how to answer, not because I was unsure, but because I was afraid of how final it would sound if I said no out loud. Instead, I said, I don't think she ever really saw me, man. Like, not the real me. Just the version she built to feel stable around Evan nodded slowly. That's not love, Kurt. That's furniture. We sat in silence after that. He was right, and we both knew it. I finally checked my phone again around noon. 2 missed calls from Ren, 1 voicemail, a new text. You're overreacting. I made a mistake, yes, but don't throw away everything we built. I'm still your wife. That word, wife, used to mean something sacred. Now it felt like a title she only pulled out when things slipped out of her control. Like a badge she wore, without ever doing the work behind it. I played the voicemail with a dry throat. Her voice cracked halfway through. She wasn't crying, but it was close. She said she was confused and lost, and that Jeremy didn't mean anything. She said it was a moment of weakness. She said we could fix it, if I'd just come home. But here's the thing. You can't rebuild a bridge that was never finished in the first place. Ren didn't trip and fall into someone else's arms. She climbed into them, deliberately, repeatedly, and without guilt until she got caught. It was never just one night. It was a slow, silent erosion of our entire foundation. 1,000 little betrayals stacked like dominoes, each one tipped with a giggle, a glance, a bar stool, a text. That afternoon, I went back to the house, not for her, but for closure, for my things, for my dignity. She was there, sitting on the couch like nothing had burned down. She jumped up when I came in, like she expected me to scoop her into a hug and say, "Let's forget it happened." I didn't speak at first. Just walked past her, grabbed a box, started filling it with clothes. She followed me room to room, throwing apologies at the back of my head like darts, none of them sticking. "It didn't mean anything, Curtis," she said again. I finally turned to her. "That's what makes it worse," I said. "You threw away everything for something that meant nothing. What does that make us?" She blinked, said nothing, so I packed in silence. That kind of silence that wraps itself around your ribs and presses. And when I picked up the photo frame on my nightstand, our wedding photo, I stared at it for a long, long time. Not because I missed her, but because I finally saw it clearly. Even then, on that perfect day, she wasn't looking at me in the photo. She was looking past me, eyes distant, smile rehearsed. I left the frame behind. That night, she chose the bar. Now I was choosing the door. I didn't tell her goodbye, not when I packed, not when I stood at the door holding the box of my life, not when she whispered, "Curtis, please," like it was some kind of magic word that could rewind months of deception. I walked out without closing the door behind me because I wanted her to feel the draft. I left everything that didn't matter anymore. Old anniversary cards, framed quotes about forever. The ceramic mug she made for me in a pottery class I never asked for. But the weirdest part, it didn't hurt like I thought it would. The pain had been drained dry weeks ago. What was left was something colder, heavier, like grief, but cleaner. Like peace that hadn't found its shape yet. Back at Evans, I unpacked what little I brought. It was strange folding shirts in someone else's house. Stranger still knowing I wasn't folding them for anyone but me this time. 2 days passed, no texts from Ren, no calls. I think she was trying to punish me with absence, like silence was a leash she could still tug when she wanted me back. She always had this way of weaponizing space, pulling back just far enough to make me reach. But this time, I wasn't moving. Then came the email. She didn't even text it. She emailed it. as if this whole thing was a corporate misunderstanding. The subject line was, "We owe each other a conversation." Inside was a wall of words about growth, healing, forgiveness, and how people mess up when they're scared. She talked about how our love had changed and how her intentions were never to hurt me. She even threw in a line about how she hoped we could be friends eventually. Friends, after everything. That word made me laugh in a way that felt cruel. Not toward her, but toward the man I used to be. The man who sat in our living room waiting for her to come home with takeout and stories from work. The man who thought loyalty would be enough to make someone stay. But here's the twist. That night, she didn't just choose the bar, she chose someone who wasn't strong enough to keep her. I found out from a mutual friend later that Jeremy had already ghosted her. Apparently, he stopped replying 2 days after I left. Typical. Guys like him don't sign up for the fallout. They want the thrill of the stolen moment, not the wreckage afterward. She got drunk on attention and sobered up in an empty room. I won't lie, when I heard that, a part of me felt vindicated. Another part just felt numb, because this was never about him. Not really. It was about the fact that she didn't fight for me until there was no one left to fight for her. And by then, it was too late. I didn't reply to her email. What could I even say? Thanks for the heartbreak, good luck healing. Number? Let her sit in the silence she once used against me. Let her hear it echo. Let her wonder, because now she finally understood what it felt like to reach out and find nothing. That night, she chose the bar. By now, she knew exactly what she'd traded away. 3 weeks passed. I didn't return home. I didn't answer her follow-up emails or the sudden missed calls that began flooding in after word spread that Jeremy had vanished from her life. I didn't even check her socials. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what she was doing. She was unraveling, not because she missed me, but because I no longer filled the space she took for granted. And when someone like Ren loses control, they don't mourn the person. They mourn the mirror they used to admire themselves in. But I didn't hate her. I didn't wish her harm. Somewhere between the silence and the sleepless nights, I realized that holding on to bitterness was just another way of letting her live rent-free in my mind. So I stopped carrying it. I started walking more, reading again, sleeping finally, without waking up, to pretend I was fine. I got a cheap apartment, nothing fancy, just mine. I even picked up the guitar again. My fingers hurt like hell, but every chord I remembered felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. And then one evening, I walked into a bookstore I hadn't visited in years, and she was there. Not Ren, someone else. She was sitting on the floor between 2 shelves, cross-legged, surrounded by used paperbacks, and wearing a hoodie 2 sizes too big. She looked up, smiled without flinching, and said, "You look like you're carrying the whole damn planet. Sit down before it breaks you." I laughed genuinely for the first time in months. We talked for hours on that cold tile floor. About nothing, about everything. Her name was Harper. She wasn't dramatic or dazzling or magnetic like Ren. She was warm, sharp, undistracted, and she listened like nothing else mattered. We didn't fall in love that night. Life isn't a movie. But for the first time in a long time, I felt something new. Curiosity about her, about myself, about what came next. And maybe that's all healing really is, being curious again about life, instead of afraid of it. So, yes, that night, Ren chose the bar. But I chose peace, and peace brought me back to life. Thank you for staying with me through this journey. Now, I want to hear from you. What's a historical moment or personal turning point that changed your life completely, something you only understood much later? Drop it in the comments. Let's make space for each other's stories. And if this one resonated with you, subscribe and stay tuned. There's more to come, right here on Reddit Confessions.